Yo, what's up guys, welcome back to another video. I've been ill the last few days, hence why I've not posted, but I'm feeling a little bit better. And yeah, that is pretty much it as to the reason as to why I've not posted for I think 3 days. But yeah, I saw this video, it's quite a new one, it's just been posted 11 hours ago. And it is why is the Deep South so different? And I mean, I do a lot of videos relating to the South, the southern part of the US, because I feel like a lot of the videos that pop up are based around the South. Maybe it's because southern people from the southern states are maybe a lot more patriotic about the states, let alone the country, but the states that they're from. And I don't know how it is, like, what is the most patriotic part of the US in terms of for the country, and then what is the most patriotic, like what are the most patriotic states, who obviously they love their state, obviously they love their country, I assume, as well, but is it maybe a state before country kind of thing? I feel like that may be the case. That may be the case in the South, but I don't actually know. But we're going to check this out and see why is the Deep South so different. And yeah, hopefully going to enjoy. Let me know your thoughts after the video. Links also in the description to my Patreon, where you can see reactions to movies, TV series, all that good stuff. But let's jump into this.
Why is the South so much different than
What are these boats called, by the way? It's like a combine harvester on the end of a boat, but I've never seen one of these in person. I mean, it's not really important, but maybe this is associated to the South. I don't actually know, to be honest.
the rest of the United States? Every region and sub-region in the US has cultural differences and quirks that might be considered odd in other regions. The poster child for this, of course, is the Deep South: Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, and South Carolina. Other southern states have some of the same differences, they just have a little bit more in the Deep South. We ran a survey and asked what region is the most unique when you compare it to the other regions in the US. The South won by a landslide. In this video, we're going to explore what those differences are. Some of you will see some of these things in other regions.
In this video, religion, politics, drool. What is drool? And culture. I have no idea what drool is. Also, you could probably do food as its own sort of subtopic as well,
But they're probably not as big a deal as it is in the South, in the Deep South. When I was in college, I did a few papers on this subject, and I was heavy into cultural geography. After World War II and US presidents, the cultural differences between the regions in the United States is what I've spent a majority of my time reading about over the years. I find this fascinating. Always have. So in this video, we're going to take a look and find out why the Deep South is effing weird compared to the rest of the country. Got it?
Damn.
Get it? Good. Let's take a look. The history. The southern United States is a region that has interested both its own people and outsiders for a very long time. Its rich mix of culture, history, and values make it different from the rest of the country. One of the main reasons the South is so unique, its history, especially the
Bro, these sorts of estates, I guess, like with these trees, like I just associate these trees with like swampland, which I don't think it even is necessarily going to be swampland, because that's like Florida and stuff. But they're just, even with these houses, right, like this is the 21st century, the 2020s as well. But you look at this and you could easily imagine this same picture, maybe bar the fences, being in like the 1850s. But I mean that in a good way, in the sense like it looks historical, and I feel like you just get a lot of places looking like this, for example, like these sorts of areas in the South. It does stand out in a lot of ways in that sense.
the times when there was slavery and eventually the Civil War. Before the Civil War, the southern states depended on growing crops like cotton.
I've never seen a cotton plant in my life. This is my first time seeing a cotton plant like in this sort of sense. How does it even, I don't understand how it even works. Is it just like a flower? Is cotton considered like a flower and it just like blossoms like this?
On giant farms, and they used enslaved people to do the work. Big farms and plantations were the main source of revenue for the Deep South, and it was very profitable. I mean, when you don't have to pay your labor, anything's profitable, I guess.
Brutal,
Even though
man.
slavery ended in the United States over 150 years ago, its effects are still seen on how different races interact and the Southern way of life. The Civil War. The Civil War, which for the most part was about slavery and state rights. Some people argue it's just about state rights. Well, okay, but you were enslaving human beings. A lot of people will argue that it was about state rights. It wasn't about slavery. No, they were trying to end slavery in the United States, which is 100% wrong, no matter how you explain it. So you don't have a right to do it. These days, not everyone sees things that way in the South, and I get that. But some do, and most of the United States finds that very strange. But back during the Civil War, it made Southerners feel proud that they were standing up for their state rights, at least how they saw it. A lot of that pride is still a thing in the Southern states. Even today, things like the Confederate flag and statues of Confederate leaders bring up mixed feelings across the country, but they mean a lot to the people in the South. This history has shaped a strong sense of independence and a desire to keep Southern traditions alive. And when you know the backstory to that, as you meet a lot of Southern people, you could see where it's coming from now. You could tell that they have this big thing about independence and pride in their state or their region.
That's what I was saying again, like patriarchy or being patriotic about, I guess, their country, but more so on their states. I just sort of assumed and thought in the southern states there's a lot more of that, like, state before country kind of thing. Maybe it's not necessarily that, but just their state is just as important as what the country that they're from. Like, for example, in the UK, it's quite cool. Like, the city that I'm from, like, it's cool to see that, like, the city do well in, like, sports or certain things. If there's, like, a famous person from the city, it's always quite cool to see someone doing well from the city. But there's not that sort of, I mean, for me personally, the county that I live in or the city that I live in, definitely not that fussed about it. Could differ from person to person, but it's definitely more of that in the US as opposed to even in the US, but more so in the South, where, like, the state or city or region you're from is just as important as the country you're from, you know?
The only place you'll find independence like that in the United States that's as strong as it is here are the western states where it was kind of frontierish, like Wyoming, Montana, and Nevada. You'd probably throw Idaho in there too, but I don't think it's as strong there. The Southern drawl.
So this is drawl. I have no idea what this is.
Region has their accent. Outside of Boston, there's probably no other accent.
Howdy there, partner. That's the worst. Howdy there, partner. Welcome to... My name is Cletus. Is that even good? That's, like, probably the most stereotypical. Cletus is probably the most stereotypical name I could think of. I think I only said that name because I could only do the accent of that name. My name is Eugene. I think that's quite good.
That is as obvious and unique than the South. The Southern United States has a handful of different dialects, with the Deep South having two, really. The main one being Southern United States English. That's what they call it. You also have Cajun. There could be an argument, too, that New Orleans has their own. You also have Texas English, Appalachian English, Black Southern English. But what we're focusing on this one is the Southern drawl. This is a type of accent that has developed over hundreds of years, just like any accent does.
What I find really fascinating with accents, I sort of touched upon this in another reaction I've done recently. How long ago was this accent? Like, how long has this accent been there? Because obviously you had the European settlers, and then you had the slaves that were brought, and then you sort of, I guess, mix the concoction of people from around Europe, from around Africa, and mainly at that point it would have been those countries. At what point would the accents have become what they are? Because for the first probably 50 years, right, I'm assuming it would just be a mixture of accents. Like, there wouldn't have been a main one, but then it's slowly, the more the longer the generations of families lived there, the accents would have come. But when did the typical Southern or Southern drawl or whatever accent, when did that really become a thing? Maybe that's not been tracked, but I assume that's probably there's a book somewhere that sort of explains it.
But the foundation of the Southern drawl was set back in the late 1700s, early 1800s. The beginnings of this accent goes all the way...
Literally just answered it for me.
...back to around the mid 1700s, when wealthy British traders started to speak without the R sound in their...
See, that's so weird to me. How did that happen? You got the British accent, which is so different. And back then, maybe it was even more like Oliver Twist British kind of thing. Like, hello, sir. I don't know. I can't think of anything else, to be honest. But it then led to that. I can't really comprehend. Was it because they were mixed with people from around the world, or was it at that point just British settlers who were just like, yeah, let's just change the accent or something?
Their words to show that they were from a higher social class. And you could hear that
Wow.
in Boston. It's a little watered down these days. I mean, the Boston accent isn't as thick as it once was. But, you know, they say like the old jokes, park the car. There's no R. They kind of replace the R with
Park
an
the
H.
car.
Instead of saying park the car, they say park the car.
Park
I'm
the
horrible
car.
at accents, but you know what I'm talking about. Now, down in the South about the same time, things were a bit different. People from northern England who were not as
Northern England. Oh wow! So you got like the Scousers, you got the Geordies, you got them. I guess the Mancunians. I can't think of people from Yorkshire. See, those accents in the UK are like, they're strong. Like there's accents all around that are strong in the South as well. But a lot of the northern regions, the places will be so close, but the accents are so varied. So I can sort of see how a concoction of that then I guess led to the southern accent, or the typical southern drawl.
rich and settled in the South, they continued to say the R sound. This is where the Southern drawl began. It was almost like a
Partner.
distinction between the common man and the rich people. The rich people used it to show status, and the poor people, in some cases, exaggerated it to show the distinction between the two. Now, it is important to note that there are different accents in the South that have a similar accent, but they don't say the R's. There's a few other tweaks to it, and there's some sayings, and there's some words that are used there that aren't used other places. Words like fixin', which is fixing, yonder, like over yonder. Doohickey is one too. Now, a lot of people use that all over the country, but that originates in the South. Doohickey. Give me some sugar, like give me a kiss or a hug or whatever, of some sort of affection. That's a
Give me
Southern
some
saying.
sugar.
Also, one I've always liked and I actually picked it up from my family that's from the South, is carry me. Like carry me to the store, carry me home. It not literally carrying you, it's like give me a ride. Then, of course, outside the Deep South, you have like Texas with y'all. Quit being ugly. That's
Hey y'all, that's definitely a word I would associate. I would have associated that with the Deep South, but I guess maybe it's more so in Texas. Y'all is probably the most southern state word, not Deep South, but southern US word I can think of for sure. Because you see it on like Twitter, like it's used in sentences, it's used in a lot of, you see it all the time when it's, but I don't even think it's just the South of the US, it's a lot of other places as well. I think it's mainly in the South, but it's probably so widely used that it's spread to other parts of the US.
a Southern saying, meaning quit being a pain in the butt. One of the absolute best things is when they use bless your heart. Now, I talked about this in other videos, that bless your heart
Is it kind of like a way to sort of laugh at someone? Like you sort of say it in like a jokey way, but it's also sort of like, I can't explain it, but it's like you'll use it in a situation where someone's being a bit stupid or something.
is a nice thing to say to someone. Oh, bless your heart, you know. That's very common for Southerns to say. But they don't just use it as a sign of affection. They also use it as a little backhanded thing when they think you're dumb.
I love
Almost
that.
like, oh, bless his heart. He's too dumb to figure it out, but at least he's trying. That's what they kind of mean when they say bless your heart sometimes. It's one of those phrases that has many different uses. Sort of like the word
What is that
dude in
video?
California, or the F word in New Jersey and New York. Also in the South, you have things like, say, a Coke. I'm going to get a Coke. To Southerners, this could be any carbonated drink. It doesn't have to be a Coke. You could have in your mind you're going to get a 7-Up, but you're going to say, I'm going to go get a Coke.
What? I've definitely looked at map videos where it shows that sort of thing, but that's so weird to think of. Because then before Coke was a thing, was it still Coke, or did it only really come when Coca-Cola was made?
Plum is another good one. She's plumb tired out. She was plumb crazy. Means totally or absolutely. I had a conversation about this with a British guy that used to work for my brother years ago. And I was explaining that the South, sometimes you can't understand what they're talking about if you're from other parts of the country. He said they have that in England too. It's called Manchester.
Manchester's not the most confusing accent to hear. God damn.
The economics.
I'm from Manchester.
Economically, the South's focus on farming played a big role in making it unique. Unlike the more industrialized North, the South's economy was based on crops and farming. This created a different way of sharing money and a social system where there were clear differences between landowners, farm workers, and enslaved people back in the day. This economic gap and the reliance on farming have influenced how the South does politics and how people act, setting it apart from the more industrial North. Obviously, the South is changing now. You've got Atlanta is a pretty serious tech spot with movies being made there all the time now. Florida has some things going on. It's a lot different than it used to be, but a lot of that carries over. It becomes part of their culture. People from outside the South see it, they think it's kind of strange. The South has a history of a simpler life. A lot of that has to do with that farming type lifestyle where you work the land. That's how this...
That's not. I mean, that's maybe a simpler life, but it's also a harder working life. When I hear simple, I'm thinking, oh, it's just relaxing and stuff. Which maybe in that case it is, but being a farmer is not a simple or easy life. It's hard as hell, man.
Region of the United States started out, and that's how they became what they are today. So sure, things have changed, but that mentality and culture will stick with them forever. Religion. Religion and a strong sense of being conservative have also helped make the southern states a little bit different. For a long time, the South has been known for its strong belief in evangelical Christianity, which really affects...
I don't even know what he means by that. Evangelical Christianity. He's probably going to explain it, but I'm just going to search it up. Is that even a thing? Evangelical. Take the Bible seriously and believe in Jesus Christ as Savior. Wait, but isn't that just being a Christian, or is it just more so, maybe? The term evangelical comes from the Greek word meaning the good news or gospel. Thus, the evangelical faith focuses on good news. So not every Christian is evangelical then? I don't really know, to be fair. I've never looked into like religion in this sort of sense, but... The term evangelical comes from the word evangel, which is a word from a Greek, which is a word form in Greek from the New Testament that refers to the good news of Jesus Christ, that Jesus came to save humanity. The evangelicals. Okay, so evangelicals have a particular take on good news. Okay, I've probably just not really read the right thing. I'm just being stupid, but I guess it's just more serious, I guess, and you sort of, it's more practice as well.
Affects their lifestyle, like politics, values, and families. This has made the South more traditional and conservative on social matters, which is unlike the more open and diverse views of other parts of the country. Obviously, not everyone in the South is into religion, but more than any other part of the country, the percentages are higher here, especially in the Deep South. I mean, the Deep South is in the Bible Belt. The Bible Belt encompasses all the southern states, except for the southern tip of Texas and the southern tip of Florida, where all those immoral people are in Miami. So a lot of people from different parts of the country might find their devotion, or at least the amount of people that are into Christianity, a little odd compared to where they're from.
What is the, he's probably going to say again, but what is the percentage of people who are Christian in the South compared to the rest of the US? Because I don't know how different it is. I know the US in general is it's, I don't know again the percentages, but it's in terms of people who believe in God and stuff. It's one of the higher percentages in terms of countries now, but maybe a lot of it is from southern states. I don't really know, to be fair, but I know the South. Again, this is the Bible Belt that you just said is a big portion of that, but I wonder the difference in like percentages and stuff.
I mean, not saying other states don't have religion. They're just a little, I don't want to say feverish about it. They're just a little more into it than other parts of the country, and it's obvious.
Fair enough.
The Southern culture. The Southern culture is full of interesting things.
Oh, so maybe this is going to involve the foods then.
It's like food, music. The Southern culture has become famous all over the world, and that's how most people know about the South. It's through the music, through the food.
What is this food? Oh my God.
These things have played a big role in keeping the Southern traditions alive and strong, making the region even more unique compared to the rest of the country. Many, many years ago, when the Berlin Wall came down and people started crossing just back, it was all over the news. This teenage guy, he might have been 20 or something, came across the border and they were interviewing people and they're all, how does this feel? He's all, it's great. I'm going to go to America. That's what first thing he said. They're all, why do you want to go to America? He barbecues, Leonard Skinner, jeans. I was just like, oh my God, this guy wants to make it to America so he could see Leonard Skinner. I don't even know if they were performing back then, but still. I was like, Leonard Skinner, the guy just comes from a communist country, gets a little freedom. He's like, I'm going to see Leonard Skinner. And in case you don't know, Leonard Skinner is probably one of the most successful bands to ever come out of Alabama. That band was like the founding fathers of Southern rock. In my personal opinion, I think the music...
I don't know one's going to care about this, but these amps, because my dad plays music, these amps are the reason my brother has his name. Because they're Marshall amps, aren't they? Just thought I'd say that.
Southern rock. In my personal opinion, I think the music, more than anything else, has played a big part in letting the South be known outside the United States and North America. Think all the way back to B.B. King, Elvis, the Marshall Tucker Band, Charlie Daniels Band from back in the day, John Lee Hooker, Wilson Pickett, Howlin' Wolf, and even the Allman Brothers from Jacksonville, Florida. The politics. In terms of politics, the South has usually leaned more towards conservative beliefs compared to other places in the country. The South, especially the deep...
Has there ever been a southern state that's voted... Okay, I always get confused. For... I forgot the name of the parties. Republican and Is it the Democrats? I'm being so dumb. I think it's the Democrats. Has a southern state ever voted for for the Democratic Party? I think I'm getting that wrong, but has that ever happened? I don't think it would have, but I'm not sure, to be fair.
South is considered very red, very Republican. It's like they could always count on winning the southern states, especially the deep South. Last couple elections, Georgia's been looking a little iffy, but the rest of the southern states are solid red states. It's like every election, you know they're going to win those, and you know the Democrats are going to win California and New York. The southern states have been supporting conservative Republicans for decades. They just seem to fit the political views and the priorities that the southern states want, for the most part. Whenever I say something like that, you always get a bunch of people going, well, I voted for the Democrats and I live in Mississippi. Whenever we talk about states, we're talking about averages.
Oh, there's blue here. Wait, this is where Alabama is? Not Alabama, Georgia. Wait, what state is Georgia? I'm having a stinker right now. Georgia isn't Alabama, right? I don't even know, for God's sake. Forgive me, I don't think this is Alabama, but I'm confused now. I can't remember what state Georgia's in. I'm just having a mare today.
Everyone's different. You're always going to have some outliers. But for the most part, the South is very red. This is another strange thing that you'll find in the South and not as much in other parts of the country. People openly talk politics, and they complain about politics to complete strangers, just like it's normal small talk. Some parts of the country, you'll go, how about this day? Yeah, this weather's killing me. I can't stop sweating. That's how a lot of conversations happen with people you don't know in public in most of the country. In the South, it's not terribly unusual to have a conversation with a complete stranger, and they start off with these damn politicians. Country's going to hell in a handbasket, that type stuff. I've had a few people bring that up in the comment section when we've done things on southern states or southern cities. They'll say something like they moved to a southern state after living in Nevada most of their life, and they are surprised how openly aggressive these people are about politics and how casually they just discuss it. Most of the time, people try and avoid politics with total strangers. Not in the South. Years ago, I saw a YouTube video where the guy's interviewing people, southern people, they were living in a trailer, and this guy just starts going off about these damn politicians, giving handouts to everyone, and no one wants to work, and he's on a rant, and all of a sudden this woman's voice from inside was like, Charlie, what are you talking about? You've been on disability and Social Security for 10 years. He's all, but I need that. The way the cameraman pulled the camera away from him was just, it spoke volumes. He was just like, oh God. But politics are definitely a big difference in the South compared to other parts of the country. Sure, you have places in the Midwest that are Republican states, but they don't get into it as much as they do in the South, especially the Deep South. And I think a lot of that has to do with their distrust of the government. No other part of this country hates the government like the southern states do. And that feeling can be traced back to the Civil War and beyond. So, in conclusion, the southern United States stands out because of its mix of history, economy, society, and politics. Slavery and the Civil War, the focus on farming, strong religious beliefs, and conservative values have all made the South have its own identity. Even as the country has changed over time, the South has held on to a lot of its traditions and ways of life, making it a region that is special and interesting in the big picture of the United States.
I mean, one thing I've noticed for sure from doing reactions is when I do reactions to videos relating to the South, there's a lot more, I guess, not opinions, but definitely people are a lot more proud and just have a bigger interest in seeing people's opinions on this stuff, or like learning about their state and stuff. And that's just from doing reactions, so it definitely makes sense about that. But yeah, let me know your thoughts, because I thought you did an admirable job of trying to be honest, but also showing good and not so good about the South. I feel like he's a pretty balanced YouTuber, to be fair. He gives just opinions that are pretty fair. Nice regional analysis here, Mr. Briggs. I hope you'll also take a look at Appalachia, New England, and the Great Lakes region. I'd be interested in that. But hopefully you enjoyed this reaction, and let me know your thoughts. And until next time, peace.